So in August of 2022, my cousin, who, like me, is an art nerd, introduced me to DALL-E 2. And I have been slightly obsessed with how I wanted to go about using it. So what I decided to do was use DALL-E 2 to illustrate one of my short stories that's in my anthology novel. I didn't do the full thing because it's a pretty, long short story for this kind of thing. However, I have already generated over 260, actually, I think the count's even higher, of just usable images for this project. The good news is you're going to be in for a very ripe slideshow that's just loaded with some very cool things. So the reason I chose this story, it's post-apocalyptic. It takes place after nature has pretty much taken over all of human civilization. And so, skyscrapers are overgrown, entire cities are abandoned, and it's also a very magical place in terms of there's a lot of bioluminescence, there's glowing crystals throughout the natural landscape, there's massive brambles, there's large glowing flowers. So I figured this would be a very pretty and interesting story to illustrate for that reason, because its setting is just so ripe. In terms of the story, there are a few things you should know going into it. Common knowledge on this planet is that it was created by a novice god who pretty much never shows up anymore. Angels are real on this planet, and 3 years prior to what I'm about to read to you, was essentially Mother Nature declaring war on all of mankind. And it was essentially a war between all the plants and animals versus humans and angels who are trying to protect them. And the humans have pretty much lost. They aren't extinct, but most of the landscape is now home to thriving jungles. And I also want to give you a heads up that it's a pretty sad story. You're following a 12-year-old boy as he tries to seek out where his final remaining family member is. And it deals a lot with grief and forgiveness and acceptance. And so the overall tone is pretty melancholy, but I'll let you get to it. The link to the book is going to be in the description. And if this gets to 2,000 views with a high retention rate, I'll probably do the next part of the story as well. But enjoy the show. With my eyes closed, forehead resting on my mother's arm, I noticed her breath gradually wither. The dripping behind me seemed to get louder as her lungs went quiet. I could no longer feel the weak pulse in the hand that I was holding. It's a relief, though, her death. To know she won't be suffering anymore. For her to know I'll go out in search of her daughter, my little sister, Becca. No other humans even know I'm here. We were supposed to evacuate 3 years ago. Some of us decided to stay behind and take care of the ill. But slowly, one by one, our community would become one life fewer to illness, airstrikes, or predators. At least no one dies of starvation anymore. It's just me. I'm the last of us. I sit on the vines that entangle the windowsill, looking across the building so thickly overgrown that it's hard to see the bricks or concrete that composes them. I enjoy the colors of plenty from here, an array of fruits hanging from the tree limbs that reach out from broken windows. I love the young seedlings now alive on rooftops of old factories that no longer spew smoke that abhors the skyline. I even enjoy watching my predators, like the leopard now, who navigates the sun-faded asphalt that's been fractured by the roots of large and strong trees, boundaries of wild grass separating each piece. It's sniffing the ground in the shade of a flower petal, searching for prey. And yet I must use these former streets to go a few towns northwest, where my sister went to school. There is someone who I believe will help me. And if you find this and need help too, go to the river just outside of Montar. You can find her, bathing in the foul stench of broken pipes that became polluted rivers, where she drinks the very poison that wrought her devotees in illness, swallowing death as casually as carrion. It was she who was most swift to abandon humanity once the resurgence struck. For it was she who answered prayers for years where flowers do not grow, where laborers cough black grime exhausted. Dirty hands would pray to her for protection, and she'd answer their prayers by delving pristine angelic hands into garbage and sift through it for any food or medicine she could find for them. Her eyes would darken with every child buried by starvation, and when she carved stripes into her flesh to reveal her allegiance to wild beasts, they spit shame at her, disgusted by her treachery. They resented her abandon of them, but she knew, without a doubt, the cruelty she was defending against for centuries was spawned by humans. If you asked her, she'd say humans abandoned themselves many years ago. She's known as Vishavru, Angel of Filth, traitor to mercy. September 10th. The door was broken. The pressure of growing vines wedged it off its top hinge, sunlight shining through green leaves from outside, as if nature were seizing the structure. To know I was going out there flooded me with anticipation. That nervous shake you feel right before a significant moment. I tugged at my collar, making sure the large iron spikes were firmly ready to protect my throat from fanged beasts. For the millionth time, feeling the outside of the pocket sewn onto my pants to hold my pistol. Only 4 bullets in the mag, however. Pistols aren't very effective against predators anymore. It seems divinity has chosen to bless nature with remarkable adaptability. I took in a breath, steadied the exhale, and wedged myself through the gap into the jungle the streets have become. I cautiously traveled the mangled asphalt, diligent eyes stressed open for predators, afraid of every gust of wind that moved a plant or shadow at the edge of my vision. I found myself standing in an intersection between 2 trees. I recognized it, and my paranoid tension was eased. I remember standing on that corner with Becca. We had just gotten mail from Dad. It was the petal of an orchid, flattened between 2 sheets of plastic. It was the closest thing to a real living plant either of us had ever seen. His note stated that if he got the job, he'd be traveling all over the world. That in his journey, he took a train that ran alongside a jungle, ripe with trees and flowers and luminous crystals, just like we see on TV. Becca had the brightest gleam of hope in her eye as she looked into the haze of a sky nearly hidden by smog. She said, "I know that somewhere, past all the smokestacks, past the city beyond, there's some place just perfect for us." But reality struck me, and I was again a lone creature in the pink sunlight, mortal and hunted, just like anything else on this planet. I gazed down the path of vegetation that broke through decaying streets, down rows of abandoned cars now covered in ivy, to the black pipes of the refineries hazed by distance. I knew that's where she'd be, where the rains eroded away soil on either side of the canal. It's now a river, littered with chunks of concrete and plastics. I managed to weave between the flowers undetected. Then I followed the fragrance of snap moths, large carnivorous plants that grow like lily pads across the ground, both sides rimmed with wooden teeth. Hidden by sweet-smelling blossoms. Each of its sides is a pressure-sensitive jaw, waiting for an animal to step into its flower bed, that it may snap shut, trapping the creature behind strong wooden bars as it digests its prey. Though they are brutal and dangerous, they are easy to spot amid the blacktop. I heard the sound of a stick snap behind me. I peered back over my shoulder to see a trio of lionesses staring me down. My heart skipped, stomach sank. They split up to cover more ground, no doubt hoping to surround me. I didn't want to take my eyes off of them, but it was vitally important to watch my step. Some of the snap maws were over 9 feet wide. Turning my back on the lions, I positioned myself between 2 of these living traps and scanned the area for my feline stalkers. Count 1, count 2, but where's the third? Panic rushed my system as I shed one strap of my backpack. It was too cumbersome. Then I saw her, reflective eyes in the shade of a large tree root. Once our eyes met, she sprinted forth, one paw down on the little flowers, and the jaws shut, catching a hind leg in its teeth. Her momentum jerked back from being caught, claws swiped inches from my face. I spun, heaving my backpack with all my might into another airborne predator. The collision knocked me onto my back, but her into the flower bed of a snapmaw that slammed closed with a loud clap of wood against wood. I got to my feet as quickly as I could, grabbing the strap of my pack. I was beaten to the ground immediately, with claws sinking into my shoulder and the lion's fangs barely touching the skin of my neck. The spiked collar was serving its purpose, lodged into the roof of her mouth. I unclipped it to get away, and she removed her claws from my body to free herself. I quickly crawled to a run, and heard metal strike the ground behind me. I sprinted, placing my foot on the root to leap over a snapmaw. My pant leg caught something, and I was being flung down toward the carnivorous plant below. I threw my pack at it. It struck, and the jaws went closed while I was still in the air. Wood teeth scraped open my face as it passed. I slammed onto the hard ground which pounded the breath from my lungs. I rolled over, reaching for the pistol, but the lion was mid-pounce, muscular feline form eclipsing the sun. I closed my eyes. Nothing happened. When I opened my eyes, I was in the shade of large wings. An angel held the beast back, black feathers, sparkling golden and silver chains dangling from her, diamonds shimmering from the rings on each of her fingers, gemstone bracelets wrapping the wrists of her tattooed arms. "I can save you from this creature for a price," she stated, lioness struggling to escape her grasp. I responded, "No, I know who you are, and you're a disgrace." She rose an eyebrow. A smirk twitched her lip, and she said, "Very well then," and released the predator. However, it didn't attack me, it fled the angel. She smiled and said, "I guess you owe me anyway." I yelled, "You know those diamonds are worthless, right? Besides, I can't pay you. You've been poor my whole life, but you'd know nothing about that." She replied, "A girl's gotta get paid." She turned away and spread her wings. I halted her. "Wait. I need you to find my sister in Moe's or the fort. If you help me find her, I'll give you my uncle's pistol and all 4 bullets within it." She looked to me and said, "You think that pistol is worth more than it is?" I asked, "Have you been to Fort New Malru?" She answered, "Yes, I have many clients there." I couldn't hold back my excitement when I blurted, Is there a young girl named Becca there? She shook her head. I don't know. I stood up, holding my pistol by the barrel and extending the grip toward her. With a tear in my eye, I begged, please, when you go back, look for a girl named Becca and keep her safe. This is the only thing I have of value. Please accept this payment. She wore an annoyed look on her brow as she spoke. It's not my problem. I lashed out in anger. Why? Eating is a luxury for you, not a necessity. And pretty much anything you could buy has been abandoned somewhere in the derelict stores, where you could more easily go than humans who quarantine themselves away from nature. So why do you need coins? Where's this money going? What value could these worthless metals of last era's wealth have to you? There was a pause. She was just staring at me, while I still held out the pistol, hoping she'd take it. I pled, please, at least fly me there, and I'll protect her myself. She replied, I'm a bodyguard and an assassin, not a private taxi. She reached out, and I studied the tattoos that cluttered her skin with black ink. What I made out was an infinity circle made of humans eating animals who completed the circle by eating humans. The circle was wreathed by a wedding ring, broken in half with its gem absent. In the center of the circle was a newborn baby cuddling a skull in a distorted way to make it look like a yin-yang, but obstructed by the bright red hatchmark words that read, Rest in predation, life is death. I felt relief as her fingers wrapped the gun's handle. She clarified, all this will pay for is the knowledge of whether or not your sister resides in the fort. I'll find you in a few days. I nodded and made the request. Tell her that I love her, that I miss her, and that I'm coming to live with her. I felt a gleam of hope as the dark winged angel flew away. I'll introduce her. She flaunts her black feather wings, decorated in the thin gold necklaces she scavenged from devastated jewelers. She walks the torn asphalt streets with pouches of coins tied tight to her hip. She wears the skulls of eagles with fresh roses held in their eye sockets. Of all the angels, she has the least loyalty to ideals, not compelled by compassion nor vengeance. No sides chosen in the resurgence. She protects only those who pray for her to do so, and kills any living thing so long as the price is right. She is Avexia. The faithful call her disgrace to divinity, but the industrialists know her as hired wings. It's only day one, and my supplies are being digested. My neck protection is gone, and I gave away my pistol to an angelic mercenary. But it's only a few blocks away. The rest of my journey to the river was a pleasant one. Walking in the shade of massive monstera plants is a delightful experience. Sunlight breaks through the slits in the leaves, and so the shadows they cast are fractured, seeming to spotlight random fruits, flowers, and ferns. Because of this contrast, my steps are lit in a mild strobe as I journey below them. I run my fingers across the hip-tall tips of grass as I move and slide my palms gently across the surface of flower petals in worship of their softness. I still don't know how to reconcile all this. That a world so rich with beauty can house such horror. If I look around here objectively, as if I never had an emotion, it all seems so perfect. The disrepair of asphalt, the thriving life, trees creating softer soil for the ferns who prefer shade, as well as the climbing vines that choke those trees to death in time. It seems perfect until I find myself invested, and I sense a tinge of righteousness in wishing the tree its full life, and see the ivy that strangles it as a faulty and unfair parasite. I could love life, all of it. I feel it. But I can't help but to be invested. I miss my parents. I wanted better for people. I wish I never had to help bury some of my friends. I wish I said, "I love you" more, instead of constantly obsessing over whether I'm being loved as much as I want to be. Maybe I'm just a sad person, and this is just the way I'll always feel. Or maybe Becca's right. Maybe there was a place just perfect for us, and I would have been a more joyful person if I'd grown up there. I guess I'll never know. When I reached my destination, my muscles ached from walking all day. I could feel blisters on my feet, but I felt safe and nourished the moment I saw Vishavru, the angel I've prayed to so many times before. She was rinsing blood off her nearly nude body, black oil dripping from the feathers of her dirtied white wings. All she was wearing was a fishnet as a skirt, with the various wrappers, empty water bottles, and other trash caught in it. A halo made of barbed wire, which held 4 pistols in a circle, all pointing toward her head, and a gas mask. I ran to her, splashing into the polluted waters. I affectionately fell into her, cheek to her belly, arms tightly wrapping her lower back. She pried me off and shoved me away. Confused and rejected, I asked, "Don't you remember me?" She answered, "I do." Excitedly, I queried, "Can you help me find Becca? I'm sure she'd love to see you." Her voice was obscured by the gas mask. "Child, I no longer help humans." I informed her, "But I must go to Moe's, maybe even the fort." She sighed and spoke. "Then you must go alone." It was at that point I realized the fresh tiger carcass on the shore, and tried, "Can I eat with you before I go?" She looked to her kill and said, "Well, I was going to dine with the hyenas tonight." I interrupted with a brief moment of laughter until I realized she wasn't joking. She continued, "Go into the sewage pipe. Once you step into the shadow, there is a chest of lighters on your right. Use one of them to light the candles on the dresser on the opposite side. Wait for me while I finish bathing." Once I lit the first candle, I saw the structure she built of natural wood and vines to hold her clothes. There was a bed with one old and worn blanket, still a mess from earlier. There's something so remarkable about her, so genuine, so beautifully savage. When she stepped in, the candlelight illuminated the textures of the blade scars all over her body. Those small shadows dancing in the flicker. She grabbed a green sundress, patterned by leaves and orange flowers. She unzipped it and tightened her wings to her back, getting them through one at a time. She never cut wing slits in it, just wore it loose around the upper body, fully unzipped in the back. Maybe it belonged to someone she loved. She didn't want to damage it. I don't know, because I never asked. Vishavru showed me to a place on a hill where she normally cooks her meat. It overlooked all the nearby oil refineries, now overgrown. The sky beyond them is a bright red as the last sliver of sun fell behind the horizon. She began throwing handfuls of firewood in small sticks closer to the pit of rocks. I turned away, gazing out over the dormant smokestacks, happy. Once she got the fire burning, she ripped tiger muscle off of the bone and skewered it with a large, sharpened stick, then handed it to me to hold over the fire. You know we all loved you, right? The whole slum, we adored you. We're thankful for everything you've done, I explained. She grabbed another large stick and took out a knife to whittle it sharp. I know. I'm sorry I couldn't make a more positive impact. I demanded, don't apologize. We were lucky to have an angel like you. Evexia only answers the prayers of the wealthy. Kavru only answers the prayers of girls. You genuinely cared for all of us. You weren't just my favorite. I really think you were the best of them. With a bare hand, she tore another chunk of flesh from the tiger's corpse and impaled it. I'll try to sum up the rest of our conversation. She told me she really enjoyed sleeping. It's something angels don't have to do. But with no humans around, she doesn't have to hear the prayers. And so she knows a kind of peace and tranquility now that she never had before. She explained to me why she stopped helping humans. She said that deep down in our genetic code is a belief that all living things exist for our exploitation. And because of that, we're toxic and a danger to the rest of the world. She then explained to me that she's going to be meeting with Kavru, which shocked me because the rumor was Kavru's been murdering angels. But Vesh is confident that that's not her intention. She eventually told me to leave. I think she feels a moral obligation to nature, and doing what's best for nature is probably not doing what's best for a human. I thanked her for everything and started my journey downstream in search for a bridge to sleep under. I'm not angry with her. I will never know the weight of burden she felt back then. She alone was trying to save an entire slum from poverty in a corporate world that believes only those who sell themselves into slavery deserve to have shelter, clothing, and meals. With all the voices begging her for help in echoes throughout her stressed and restless mind, I bet it was relief when her heart finally broke, and all her love for humanity turned to disdain.